In a quiet village wrapped in golden fields and red earth, two sisters were born under the same roof but carried hearts shaped by very different winds. The elder, Naledi, arrived during a season of rain, soft, steady, generous. Her mother used to say the sky opened just to bless the child. And perhaps it did, because Naledi grew like a calm river, patient, gentle, and loyal. She worked with her hands and her heart at the same time, and everything she touched seemed to become better. Her father's fields flourished under her care, her mother's garden bloomed brighter when she watered it, and even wild animals approached her without fear. People often said, if kindness wore a face, it would look like Naledi. Then came Emily. She was born on a night of loud winds that rattled the thatched roof. The elders said the spirits were talking that night, arguing among themselves about the child who was coming. And when she opened her eyes for the first time, they shimmered like polished stones, sharp, watchful, beautiful. She grew quickly, admired by everyone who saw her. Emily carried beauty like a weapon she never needed to sharpen. It simply glowed from her without effort. Wherever she walked, heads turned. Wherever she spoke, people listened, even when her words carried a sting. But beauty alone does not raise a child's heart. And Emily, with all she had been given on the outside, felt only hunger on the inside. She longed for more attention than a village could offer. Whenever Naledi was praised, Emily's smile tightened. Whenever Naledi succeeded, Emily's eyes darkened. Their mother noticed this early, the way jealousy curled around the younger girl like a shadow no sunlight could chase away. Naledi tried to include her in everything, fetching water, cooking, singing at evening fires, but Emily always found a way to twist the moment into bitterness. If Naledi carried a heavy pot from the river, Emily would say, "See how she pretends to be strong." If Naledi offered her the softest piece of bread, Emily would mutter, "She wants to be seen as generous." If villagers thanked Naledi for helping with chores or tending to the sick, Emily would complain that Naledi did it only because she enjoyed being praised. Their father once told them, "The world is a mirror. It shows you what you hold in your heart." Naledi believed him. Emily did not. As the sisters grew older, their differences sharpened. Naledi rose before sunrise every morning. She swept the yard, fed the goats, prepared morning tea for her parents, and still had the strength to help the neighbors before tending to her own duties. There was a quiet rhythm to her life. She moved through each day with purpose, like someone who knew kindness was a form of wealth no one could steal. Emily, on the other hand, moved like someone always waiting for applause. She spent hours perfecting the beads in her hair, hours more choosing the cloth that would make her beauty blaze like fire. She refused simple tasks, saying they would spoil her hands. She laughed loudly at the village boys and teased the girls who lacked her charm. She wanted to be adored, feared, envied, anything but ignored. The village watched the sisters with mixed feelings. People admired Naledi deeply, yet they could not deny Emily's charm. Some whispered that beauty like hers was a blessing. Others whispered it was a curse. A few whispered that someday, the two sisters would collide like storms meeting in the sky. Their mother prayed that love would soften Emily. She prayed that Naledi's goodness would rub off on her younger daughter. But envy is a quiet seed. It does not need sunlight to grow. It grows in the dark, fed by insecurities, watered by comparisons and unspoken resentments. And Emily compared herself to Naledi constantly. Every praise Naledi received felt like a wound on Emily's pride. She wanted respect but without earning it. She wanted admiration but without giving anything in return. She wanted love, but not the kind that shared space with someone else's happiness. Yet despite Emily's coldness, Naledi loved her. Truly. She defended her during arguments, comforted her during storms, brought her sweet mangoes from the fields and shared her secrets with her. Naledi believed, perhaps too strongly, that everyone carried goodness inside, even if it slept beneath hurt or fear. Emily believed, perhaps too deeply, that the world owed her everything she desired. So the two sisters grew. One with hands calloused from work but soft with compassion. The other with hands untouched by labor but hardened by envy. They slept under the same roof, ate at the same table, were raised by the same parents. Yet one heart leaned toward light while the other curved toward shadows. And though no one knew it yet, their paths would one day split in a way that would shake the entire village. For envy does not remain quiet forever. It waits. It watches. And eventually it acts. When the moment came, it would destroy a home, test a marriage, and turn sister against sister. But that story begins later. For now, the village knew only this. Two sisters lived among them. One who warmed hearts, and one who would one day break them. When Naledi reached the age of marriage, The village elders often whispered that any man who won her heart would be blessed for the rest of his days. She carried calmness the way some carried a spear, firm, steady, unshakable. So when Cato, the village's most respected hunter, began to show interest in her, no one was surprised. Cato was known for his strength, yes, but also for his humility. He hunted only what the village needed, shared his meat with widows and orphans, and spoke with a quiet authority that made even the boastful listen. He had a way of walking into a room that made people straighten their backs. But when he looked at Naledi, something softened in him, as though he saw a gentleness the world rarely gave him space to feel. He visited her family one evening, carrying a freshly hunted antelope over his shoulder. Naledi was tending to the fire when he stepped into the yard. Their eyes met briefly. Not long, not dramatic, just a moment. But it felt like two steady souls recognizing each other. Her father invited him to sit. Her mother offered tea. Naledi kept her gaze low but smiled politely. Cato wasn't a man of many words, yet the few he spoke that evening changed everything. "I have seen your daughter," he said quietly. "How she works, how she treats people, how she carries peace in a world that often forgets peace exists. If she is willing, I would like to build a life with her." The words were simple but they held weight. Her father nodded slowly. Her mother smiled. Naledi felt her heart beat like distant drum music, soft but steady. She agreed. The wedding preparations began soon after, and the entire village buzzed like a hive touched by sunlight. Women braided Naledi's hair with red and gold threads, symbols of love and longevity. Elders blessed her with prayers that had crossed generations. Children ran around her, singing her name as if she were a queen. But not every heart celebrated. Emily watched from a distance, her jaw tight, her fists hidden inside her shawl. When villagers whispered about how lucky Naledi was, Emily's heart twisted painfully. Lucky? She thought. What did she do to deserve him? I'm the beautiful one. I'm the one people admire. Why should she receive a man like Cato? Why not me? She buried these thoughts under a smile so convincing even her mother could not see the truth. But envy burns brightest when hidden in darkness. On the day of the wedding, Naledi glowed, not in the way Emily's beauty shone like fire, but in a softer way, like warm sunrise light touching the earth. She looked content. Steady. Cato stood waiting for her, dressed in traditional hunter's cloth, beads carved from lion bone hanging around his neck. When Naledi reached him, he bowed his head slightly, an act of respect that made the crowd murmur with approval. Few men bowed to their brides. But Cato was not a man ruled by pride. As the ceremony began, drums filled the air, deep and rhythmic. The elders tied a woven cord around Naledi and Cato's hands, blessing their union with words older than memory itself. Emily clapped. She danced. She sang with the crowd. But in her chest, a flame of envy licked higher and higher. Her eyes followed Cato constantly. The way he looked at Naledi, not with hunger but with devotion. The way he smiled softly when she spoke. The way he touched her hand as though she were delicate and precious. Every gesture felt like a knife twisting slowly inside Emily. She kept thinking, why her? Why not me? When the guests danced around the new couple, Emily stepped close enough to whisper in Naledi's ear, "You are very lucky, sister." Naledi smiled, unaware of the storm growing inside her. "Yes," she said softly. "I am blessed. Cato is a good man." Emily's smile tightened. Some blessings come to the wrong people. Naledi didn't understand the words fully, but there was something cold in them, something she had never heard from her sister before. A shadow she ignored because she wanted, desperately, to believe that love would heal all wounds. But Emily's wound did not want healing. It wanted feeding. And after that wedding day, Emily's envy began searching for an opportunity, an opening, a weakness, a moment where she could take what she believed should have been hers. She smiled that day. But behind the smile, the first threads of betrayal had already begun to weave themselves. It began softly, so softly that Naledi did not even feel the first tremor. Emily arrived at their home 3 days after the wedding, carrying a basket of fruit and a smile bright enough to hide anything. "I've come to help my sister settle," she said sweetly. Naledi welcomed her with open arms. She had always been the kind of woman who believed goodness first. She set aside a mat for Emily, offered her tea and let her move freely around the house. What Naledi did not see was the way Emily's eyes moved, not around the home but toward Cato. Emily made sure to visit again the next day. And the next. Soon her presence in their home became as regular as the sunrise. She brought excuses with her. "Sister, I thought you needed help with grinding the maize." I came to check on you after the long hunt. I just happened to be nearby. Naledi trusted every word. But the village saw everything. Women at the well began whispering. Have you noticed? The younger sister sits in Naledi's yard more than Naledi herself. Another added softly, beauty is dangerous when it envies. Still, Naledi did not suspect. She believed that love and family protected a home like a shield. But betrayal rarely enters like a lion. It enters like a guest who smiles too sweetly. Cato was not a weak man, but even strong men have eyes. Emily made sure those eyes noticed her. When she walked, she moved with deliberate grace. When she spoke, her voice softened to a sing-song tone that brushed against the ears like silk. She laughed at Cato's jokes louder than Naledi did, even when the jokes were simple or dull. She complimented him often. You are the bravest hunter in this village. Your shoulders carry strength the way mountains carry stone. Your wife is lucky, Cato. Sometimes she added that last sentence with a smile that lingered a bit too long. Cato would turn away out of respect, but there were moments, fleeting, almost invisible, where his gaze stayed on her half a second longer than it should. Emily noticed every second. She counted them like seeds. Naledi, busy with chores, often missed these exchanges. But she felt something else, an unseen shift in the air like the moment before a storm. Sometimes she found Cato sitting outside with Emily when she returned from the river. They would jump slightly as though caught doing something they should not, even if they were only talking. Other times she caught Emily adjusting her dress or tucking in her hair just as Cato approached. There were moments where Cato seemed distracted, his thoughts floating somewhere else. His answers became shorter. His voice softened when speaking to Emily in ways he no longer did with Naledi. Once, when Naledi reached for his hand during a meal, he pulled away, not harshly, not intentionally, just absent-mindedly. But that tiny motion burned. Naledi felt the sting, but she swallowed it quietly. She was a woman raised to preserve peace, not disturb it. The whispers in the village grew louder. Children are the worst keepers of secrets, and one afternoon 2 young girls passed Naledi's home whispering loudly. People say Emily sits where Naledi should sit. It is said the hunter's eyes wander. I heard Emily wants what belongs to her sister. Naledi's hands froze mid-motion. She felt the ground shift beneath her feet. But she did not confront Emily. She did not confront Cato. Instead, she told herself they are just children. They speak nonsense. But the truth is not always spoken by the wise. Sometimes the mouth of a child reveals what adults keep quiet. That evening, Naledi sat alone outside watching the sky turn deep orange. She waited for Cato to return from hunting. She told herself she wasn't waiting to see if Emily walked with him. She simply wanted to greet her husband. But when she saw them approaching together, her breath caught. Emily was laughing at something Cato had said. Their shadows stretched along the ground, walking side by side as though they belonged together. Naledi stood, heart trembling. Cato greeted her kindly, but there was a distance in his eyes, something she was too afraid to name. Emily hugged Naledi warmly, too warmly. Sister, she said gently, Cato and I were just discussing hunting paths. You know I always ask many questions. Naledi forced a smile. Yes, of course. But her heart whispered a warning she could no longer ignore. Something was shifting. Something was slipping. And though she said nothing, though she swallowed every thorn of doubt, Naledi felt the first wound of betrayal land silently inside her chest. For the first time since her wedding, the night did not feel warm around her. It felt like a curtain slowly falling, hiding the truth that Emily had already begun to reach for what was not hers, quietly, sweetly, and without shame. Cato's fall did not happen in one day. It happened in shadows, small shifts, small doubts, slowly reshaping the heart that once beat faithfully for Naledi. Emily made sure of it. She became an expert in timing. She arrived only when Naledi looked her most exhausted, sweat on her brow, dust on her dress, hands rough from chores. One afternoon, when Cato returned early from the hunt, Emily greeted him at the doorway while Naledi was inside scrubbing pots. Sister is tired today, Emily said with a sympathetic sigh. She works so hard, but the house still falls behind. Cato frowned. She does her best. Emily nodded, but her eyes softened with false pity. Of course she does. But maybe she needs help. Or, maybe the work is too much for her gentle nature. When Naledi came out moments later, smiling through her tiredness, she had no idea a seed of doubt had been planted. Another time, Emily pretended to twist her ankle while carrying water. Cato rushed to help her. She leaned on him heavily, letting her hand rest on his arm a little too long. Naledi hurried toward them, worry on her face. Amelie, are you hurt? No, no, it's nothing, Amelie said before Cato could respond. She winced dramatically. But I would have fallen if Cato had not been here. He is dependable. Cato looked proud. Naledi looked small. Amelie smiled inwardly. Day after day, Amelie painted Naledi as dull, fragile, uninteresting. If Naledi enjoyed silence, Amelie called it boring. If Naledi worked carefully, Amelie whispered it was slow. If Naledi showed patience, Amelie spun it as weak. And Cato listened. He didn't mean to. But flattery is a honey that sticks easily to pride. Amelie flattered him constantly. You deserve a lively wife. You deserve someone who sees your greatness. You deserve laughter after long hunts. Naledi offered love. Amelie offered excitement. And Cato, blinded by charm, began sliding toward the trap she crafted for him. The first sign Naledi noticed was subtle. Cato brought home beads, a set Naledi had admired for weeks. She smiled warmly as he approached, ready to thank him. But he walked right past her. He handed the beads to Amelie. You like pretty things, he said. They suit you. Naledi felt her knees weaken. Amelie gasped in delight, pretending surprise. Oh, Cato, I cannot accept this. It is too much. But her fingers were already curling around the gift. And Cato was already watching her with a smile Naledi had not seen in months. More gifts followed. A bracelet made of ivory. A shawl woven by travelers. Sweet fruits from the northern farms. Things Naledi once received. Now they passed through her home without touching her hands. Each gift was a silent declaration. Amelie was becoming the woman in his eyes. And Naledi, the shadow. One evening, Naledi prepared Cato's favorite stew, fish cooked with herbs and ground melon seeds. She sat beside him as he ate, hoping to rekindle even a trace of the closeness they once had. But Amelie appeared in the doorway wearing the beads he gave her. I brought roasted ground nuts, she said softly, placing them at his side. Cato brightened. Ah, just what I wanted. Naledi lowered her gaze. She felt the stew turn cold in her own bowl. The final moment came without warning. Cato returned from the hunt with hard eyes and stiff shoulders. Naledi met him with her usual soft smile. Cato, you're back early. I kept food warm for you. He didn't smile back. Naledi, we need to talk. Her breath froze. Amelie lingered in the background, pretending not to listen, though her heart danced. Cato inhaled deeply. I don't think this marriage is working for me. You're good, Naledi. But Amelie, she understands me. Naledi felt the world tilt. Cato, she whispered, she is my sister. She is the woman my heart has chosen, he replied, voice like a blade. Amelie lowered her eyes demurely, pretending conflict she did not feel. Naledi felt the ground crack beneath her, everything she built, everything she cherished, shaking. Cato delivered the final blow. I want to leave you. I want Amelie. The quiet betrayal was now a loud one. And Naledi's heart shattered, not because she lost a husband, but because she lost him to the one person she trusted to protect her, not steal her life. The trap Amelie set had finally closed. And Cato, blinded, walked willingly into it. Naledi walked away from her home with nothing but the clothes on her back and the ache in her chest. The path out of the village felt longer than it ever had before, each step sinking into the dust like her feet carried stones instead of flesh. She did not cry, not because she was strong but because the pain was too deep for tears. Some wounds do not spill outward. They bleed inward first. The sun was setting when she reached the edge of the forest, where an old hut stood beneath a cluster of ancient trees. Smoke curled softly from its roof, carrying the scent of herbs and wood fire. Naledi hesitated. She had nowhere else to go. The door opened before she could knock. A frail old woman with silver braids and eyes sharp as morning light looked at her as though she had been expecting her. You carry the weight of betrayal, the woman said calmly. Come inside, child. Naledi's knees almost gave out. She had not heard a gentle voice in weeks. This was Mama Thandi, the healer, the wise woman, the one villagers whispered about, the one who lived apart, seeing truths others refused to face. Naledi stepped inside. The hut was warm, filled with hanging herbs, clay bowls, dried roots, and wooden carvings. It felt like stepping into a womb of safety. Mama Thandi poured her warm tea without asking any questions. Naledi drank. Then, the tears she thought she no longer had came pouring out. She wept until her body shook. Wept for her marriage. Wept for the sister she had loved. Wept for the life that had shattered like a clay pot dropped on stone. Mama Thandi let her cry. When Naledi could finally breathe, the old woman spoke. Pain does not break good women. It sharpens them. Naledi looked up, exhausted. But I feel broken. Broken is not the same as destroyed, Mama Thandi said. Broken clay can be molded again. And sometimes it returns stronger. Naledi stayed. At first she only rested, sleeping long, silent hours. Her heart mended piece by piece, gently, slowly, carefully. Then the healing began. Mama Thandi taught her how to grind herbs into medicines, how to read wounds, how to soothe fevers with roots and leaves. Naledi listened, learned, practiced. Her hands, once trembling from sorrow, grew steadier each day. The old woman also taught her the deeper lessons, those not written in any book. How to hear the truth in a person's breath. How to see through smiles that hide poison. How to lead without shouting. How to remain soft without becoming weak. Naledi absorbed everything like dry earth drinks rain. In the evenings they sat outside the hut, watching fireflies dance in the dusk. You think your story has ended, Mama Thandi murmured one night? But your fire has only just begun to warm. Naledi turned her gaze to the stars. I feel the pain fading, but not the memory. Good, Mama Thandi said. Memories are not chains, Naledi. They are maps. They show you where not to return. Weeks turned into months. Naledi's back straightened again. Her voice regained clarity. Her laughter returned, soft at first, then fuller, brighter. People from distant villages began coming to Mama Thandi's hut seeking help. Naledi greeted them, listened, treated them when Thandi was resting. Soon the visitors started saying, "The quiet one has strong hands. The shattered wife now heals others. The spirit of wisdom sits in her eyes." And Naledi began to feel something she had not felt in a long time. Purpose. One afternoon, Mama Thandi placed a hand on her shoulder. Her skin was paper-thin but her touch carried power. You came to me broken, she said. Now you stand ready to become something greater. Naledi's heart beat harder. Greater? Mama Thandi nodded. A woman who survives betrayal becomes a force. A woman who learns from it becomes a leader. Naledi exhaled slowly. The wind shifted. For the first time since her fall, she felt the rise within her, gentle, steady, unstoppable. Naledi had left her home in heartbreak. But in the hut of an old healer, surrounded by truth and fire and wisdom, she began growing into a woman no betrayal could ever destroy again. Amelie enters Cato's home with triumph sparkling in her eyes. She walks through Naledi's old rooms wearing Naledi's old smile. But she cannot wear Naledi's peace. At first, Cato believes he has won a life of excitement and beauty. Amelie cooks lavish meals, dresses in bright colors, laughs loudly, and keeps Cato's attention fixed on her. But the charm lasts only for a moment. Soon Amelie shows her true nature. She becomes jealous of every person Cato speaks to, even elders and childhood friends. She accuses him of disloyalty, demands he stay home and argues over every small thing. Villagers begin whispering. Cato chased away peace and welcomed fire. Naledi was quiet. Amelie is a storm. Amelie wastes money on luxury, mocks Cato's old hunting partners, and insults neighbors who visit the home. She throws away Naledi's handmade items simply because she cannot stand anything that reminds Cato of the woman he abandoned. Even Cato's mother stops visiting the house. Cato feels something he never felt with Naledi. Restlessness, shame, regret. He begins to see the truth. Naledi wasn't boring. She was steady. Naledi wasn't weak. She was loyal. And Amelie is the reflection of every ugly choice he made. The bed becomes cold. The meals become bitter. The days stretch long and heavy. Cato looks at the home he once shared with Naledi and realizes. Amelie didn't want a husband. She wanted a victory. And Cato was the prize, until the prize grew worthless to her. Amelie cannot bear it anymore. Everywhere she goes, she hears Naledi's name, spoken with admiration, with warmth, with gratitude. Villagers praise Naledi's healing hands. Women talk about her wisdom. Men speak of her strength. Each compliment feels like a slap to Amelie. One evening, after returning home from the market where 3 women compared her unfavorably to Naledi, she explodes. She storms into the house, her voice sharp enough to cut wood. Do you still love her? She shouts. You think she's better than me, don't you? Cato tries to calm her, but she throws his hands away. Amelie's jealousy, once hidden behind smiles, now spills into every corner of the house. She accuses him of longing for Naledi, of dreaming about her, of regretting his choice. The house becomes a battlefield, doors slammed, voices raised, plates breaking, servants fleeing to avoid the storm. Cato stands in the center of the chaos and finally sees what he refused to see before. Emily never wanted love. She wanted to win. She wanted to take what Naledi had, not because she valued it but because her envy demanded it. The beauty that blinded him now reveals its true face. Cato feels something crack inside him. He remembers Naledi's calm presence, her steady loyalty, her kind silence, her quiet strength that held peace like a river holds light. He looks at Amelie, raging and wild, and realizes the truth with painful clarity. He traded gold for glitter. He chose jealousy over gentleness. He destroyed his own peace with his own hands. And as Amelie's voice rises again, tearing through the night, Cato understands that this storm, this chaos, this regret, is the price of betrayal. A price he will pay for a long, long time. Time passes and Cato cannot escape the weight of his mistakes. Every night, he remembers Naledi's quiet strength, the laughter he ignored, the warmth he abandoned. The gifts, the flattery, the glitter, all of it feels hollow now. Finally, he decides to see her. He walks to her new home, humble and simple, surrounded by villagers who greet her with respect. Cato approaches, head bowed, hands empty except for a small token of apology, a woven bracelet he hopes can speak what his words cannot. Naledi meets him at the gate. Her eyes are calm, but they carry the gravity of someone who has endured pain and emerged stronger. Cato, he begins, voice shaking. I was blind. I see now what I lost. Please. Naledi raises a hand, stopping him. She does not yell, she does not insult. She simply says, her voice steady. You left a woman who loved you for one who loved only herself. I cannot undo what was done. Nor can I return to what was taken from me. Cato's chest tightens. He had hoped for forgiveness, for a return to what he once had. But Naledi does not offer it. She allows him to stand there in the silence of his regret, letting him feel the truth he had ignored for so long. He turns to leave, understanding that some losses cannot be reversed. And as he walks away, the village watches, whispering to one another. The heart that abandons goodness cannot reclaim it. Naledi remains at the gate, calm, serene, a woman who has risen above betrayal and claimed her own life. Amelie's victory crumbles. Her jealousy and manipulation alienate everyone around her. The glitter she thought would secure Cato's devotion now burns alone in her hands. She finds herself isolated in the house she fought to dominate, abandoned by the man she tried to claim. Cato, meanwhile, lives with the memory of Naledi haunting every choice he makes. He sees her strength grow every day, her wisdom, her kindness, her leadership in the village. She teaches the children, tends the sick, helps the poor, and guides the elders with insight he never offered. The villagers, especially the daughters, watch her rise and whisper. Beauty may steal a man, but character is what keeps a home. Cato realizes that his life is now a lesson written by Naledi's example. He cannot undo what he lost. He cannot reclaim the love he abandoned. Amelie's envy consumes her, leaving her empty. Cato's regret lingers, bitter and constant. But Naledi walks with quiet grace, surrounded by respect and admiration. Her name becomes a symbol of loyalty, of strength, of the woman who survived betrayal and grew into the light everyone now follows. The village remembers. They tell their children the story of two sisters, of choices and consequences, of love and envy. And above all, they teach the truth. A heart that chooses rightly, one that loves with patience and strength, cannot be stolen. Naledi stands tall, the woman who lost nothing in the end, the one whose life became the measure of justice, wisdom, and enduring character. Her story closes with a lesson for generations. He tried to take her, he tried to betray her, and even when the man he loved returned, the woman who knew her own worth remained untouchable. And in that, the village learned the ultimate truth. Character outshines beauty, loyalty conquers charm, and a heart grounded in love cannot be undone.